Surprise summit with Chinese President Xi Jinping this week was the first time he traveled outside of his country since he assumed power in 2011. That's according to his own state media. But Beijing is just the start. Next is a meeting just south of the DMZ with South Korean President Moon Jae-in. Then potentially with President Trump in an as yet undisclosed location. He's also rumored to be considering a sit down with Russia's Vladimir Putin, while one of his staunchest critics, Japanese Prime Minister Shinzo Abe, says he's ready for a meeting too. So what is drawing him out of the Hermit Kingdom all of a sudden? Let's talk about it with Republican Senator from South Carolina, Lindsey Graham, a member of the Senate Armed Services Committee. Great to have you with us, Senator.
That is a stunning overview. If you told me a year ago that the North Korean leader would be meeting with President Trump, potentially the Russians and the Japanese, I wouldn't believed it, and hats off to President Trump and his team for making this a reality. Maximum pressure has worked.
Let's talk first about China, because I read an account today that said for 6 years he's been pushing China to have an official meeting with him. They weren't really interested. It never happened. They kind of held him at arm's length.
Right.
Then as soon as it's becoming apparent that he's going to meet with President Trump, China says, hey, come for a visit. I mean, they obviously have different interests in the region than we do. There are some similar, but there are some differences. Yun Sun, writing a piece in 38 North, says this: Beijing is concerned with any concessions that North Korea might make toward the U.S. in exchange for a U.S. security guarantee or a settlement that could lead to the unification of the Korean Peninsula by absorption and the emergence of a unified Korea as an American military ally on China's border.
I think that's a pretty good analysis of what they fear. Now, here's what they hope. They hope that North Korea will stop being a pain in the rear for them. The North Korean nuclear program destabilizes the entire world. I hope that Kim Jong-un was told by the Chinese president, we stand with America. You need to give up your nukes. And I would tell the Chinese, our goal is not to reunify South Korea and North Korea. Our goal is to make sure that North Korea gives up their nuclear weapons to protect the American homeland and the world at large. Help us there.
Do you think they will, though, because the messages were relayed after their meetings that they're open to denuclearizing the peninsula? There are plenty of skeptics who aren't buying that or wonder what kind of agreement we could get with North Korea as far as rigorous, legitimate inspections.
Well, one, we've seen this movie before. In 1994, they gave up their nuclear program for food. They took the food and they kept the nukes. The one thing I would tell China and North Korea, the worst mistake you can make is meet with President Trump personally, have a discussion about what to do, and try to play him. If that happens, that's the end of North Korea. I met with the president today. He doesn't want a war. He's hopeful that this can result in ending the North Korean nuclear threat, stabilizing that part of the world, and I think he's ready to go big. The Korean War has never been ended.
Technically.
What I would like to see happen is a peace treaty between South Korea, North Korea, China, and the United States. North Korea give up their weapons. Japan doesn't have them. South Korea doesn't have them. We'll give them an assurance that we're not going to invade North Korea. We're going to tell the Chinese we're not trying to unify the Korean Peninsula, but we are insisting that Kim Jong-un give up his nuclear program. There's a chance for a deal. This is the last best chance to avoid a war. And the worst thing could happen is North Korea try to play Donald Trump.
Well, you have said that the damage from a war with North Korea would be worth it in terms of long-term stability and national security. That scares a lot of people when you say that.
I don't want to minimize the damage would be great. Worth it. It's all about bad choices. If there's a war between North Korea and us, South Korea and Japan will get hit hard. Thousands of people could die. That is not lost upon me. But if we allow them to get an ICBM that can hit America with a nuclear-tipped missile, then millions of Americans are at risk, and he will sell anything he develops. He sold to Syria. He tried to help Iraq. So North Korea proliferates nuclear materials. So you got two bad choices. To me, it is worth it to stop him from getting a big nuclear arsenal, because he'll give it or sell it to people who would use it if he would not.
Let's talk about Russia. Interesting, because the president took these steps, obviously, in tandem with a number of European allies to expel a number of Russian personnel, intelligence officers, those kinds of things, in response to this poisoning on British soil that Russians are now saying the UK did and made it look like the Russians did it. I'm no security expert or professional on poison, so I won't comment on
Who
that.
do you believe?
Anyway, a couple of people now stepping up in the mainstream media to praise the president. David Sanger from the New York Times saying this: it's getting harder to make the argument that the president has not gotten tough with Putin. John Avlon of the Daily Beast saying this is big and it deserves credit.
It deserves a lot of credit. 60 diplomats / spies. The president mentioned that today. The best thing could happen is to unite the world against Russia's aggression, not just be the United States versus Russia, but the entire world. Look what happened when we decided to expel Russian diplomats and spies. The entire world followed President Trump. The best thing he could do, in my view, here at home and abroad, is to tell Putin, I don't want to be your enemy, but you're making me be your enemy. And if you continue to disrupt the world, invade your neighbor, assassinate people in foreign countries, then you're going to pay a price. If France and Germany would get behind Trump's efforts to change business practices in China, guess what? China would stop cheating if they had to pay a price. Putin would stop disrupting the world if he paid a price. And I can tell you this, Putin will respond to weakness through aggression, and he will respond to strength by backing off. And President Trump's got a moment in time here to really make Putin pay a price. His economy is the size of Italy.
All right, 15 seconds.
Sure.
You spent 90 minutes with the president today. How did he seem to you? Because there's a lot of news swirling around him, much of it not positive.
Very, very focused, very upbeat. Feels like he's doing a good job. And we have some historic moments coming in May with North Korea and Iran. The tax cuts are working. He wants to try to get a deal on immigration that would include the wall. The president was very upbeat. And quite frankly, I think he's done a very good job as commander-in-chief.
All right. Senator Graham, always good to have you with us. Thanks.